Welcome back to Light Talk, where everyday people can be themselves and tell their own unique supernatural stories. If you have a story to share, absolutely email me at lighttalk423 at gmail.com and let's get you on the show. And while you're at it, click on the like, share, and subscribe buttons. Well, let's get started. We've got a lot of good, awesome stories today. I'm so excited for this guest today. So I'm going to hand the mic over. Go ahead and introduce yourself and
Thank you,
welcome.
Dana. My name is Earl Gray Anderson. I am state director here in Southern California for MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. We've technically been doing the Air Force's job since 1969, when the Air Force shut the doors on Project Blue Book, which was their official investigation into the UFO phenomenon. MUFON opened their doors up. The Air Force pretty much said, "Nothing to see here, folks. Pass on by." But that we don't think that was very. It was a little disingenuous, to tell you the truth. So there's a lot there to study, to investigate, and that's my milieu and my world, and I love it.
Well, I've heard a lot about MUFON and it sounds very interesting to me. So I'm welcome you to the show. So you had mentioned when we spoke before about an incident that when you were 5 years old. Can you start up with that?
Sure. Well, we all have our origin stories, whether it be Spider-Man or the trash collector, and I guess this is mine that I was born in 1958. I was 5 years old, and I had this weird little ritual. Every morning I would go out, I would climb up to the top of the swing set, and I would wave and I would sing at the sky. Now, my mom, she opened up the kitchen window one morning and she, you know, who are you waving and singing to, Earl? And without any preamble, without even any thought, I just answered her, I'm waving and singing to the space people, Mom, to the space people. Now, my mom had an interesting job. Everybody knew about it. She was one of Howard Hughes's personal secretaries. He had a few secretaries, he had a few offices, but this was in Los Angeles, California, at the original Hughes aircraft office. But that wasn't news. Mom was even a little braggadocious about that. But after I told her who I was waving and singing to every morning. I was getting ready to go to kindergarten, Wallgrove Elementary School in Venice, California. And my mom, she sat across from my cornflakes that morning and she said, Earl, you know, I see this little thing you do every day where you wave and you sing to the space people. And you know about my old job when I was working for the millionaire Howard Hughes. And, there was a lot of elements, the space program was involved here with Hughes. I know that my mom worked with a Redstone rocketry program at some level, used to talk about that. But my mom started telling me this crazy story. She said, people don't know about this element to what I did, son. And she said that they took her out to the middle of the great American desert. They didn't give her any idea of what they were taking her out to see. It was just herself and a couple of security guys, a security detail. She said that the only thing that you could see was this concrete shack. And then it was just barren desert. But they took her up to this shack, they opened it up, and there was an elevator inside of this shack. My mom said that, well, we got into this elevator, the doors closed. It was just like you would go into an office building, but the elevator, of course, was going down. There was no upstairs to speak of. And she said, it kept going and kept going. And I was scared. She said, I felt butterflies in my stomach, were her exact words. She said, when the doors opened up, there was a little bustling city that was under the great American desert. She said there were a lot of German rocket scientists that worked there that I suppose we got from Operation Paperclip during World War II. We acquired a lot of the German scientists. She said that there was a bowling alley, and people would get around in golf carts, is how they would get around. So this was quite a sprawling facility. And the way she ended this little conversation was she said, "Well, son, I just wanted you to know that there are space people, that we found this out, that they're never going to tell the American public, but that we know that we're not alone in the universe. And so when you go out and you wave and you sing to the space people, there really are space people." And mom got my lunch ready and she said, "Well, it's time to go to school." And of course, I went and played in the sandbox and whatever other, things that we did back when we were 5 years old in kindergarten. But the story stayed with me all my life. It got me in trouble a couple of times.
I
Like, for
bet it
instance,
did.
yeah, I when I was, 5 years after that, we had a show and tell day at school, and people were talking about their fathers who worked for, the Gemini program and this and that. Apollo program was going on, and I talked about my mom. She didn't say I couldn't. Well, anyhow, there was a parent teacher conference, and I'll never forget my mom. I was playing in the playground while she met with a teacher, probably waving and singing at the space people again. And mom is very quiet. We walk out to the car, and she told me, she said, "Son, you didn't lie to your teacher, you didn't lie to your class, but I'm so sorry I had to tell them that you have a very good imagination." She closed my door and she's trying to drive home now. And she said, "Son, I wasn't supposed to tell you the information that I told you. Nobody knows about little cities under the desert. They certainly don't know about space people and UFOs and things like that." She said the public's just not aware. And she said, "You can't ever talk about this again. I could go to prison." She said that she could go to prison. And that kind of zipped my mouth up about the subject for many years. But I would try to get her to talk more, and sometimes she did. And all these years later, this is what led me to join MUFON. And I kind of took to it like a fish to water. It's like I was born to do what I do. And we get a lot of very, very interesting cases. Pilots, we get commercial air crews and military, all talking pretty much about this phenomenon and how it's a personal phenomenon and is very active to this very day.
Yeah, I would love to get a pilot on the show. So if
Yeah,
anybody knows of a pilot if you can get a hold of somebody, if they want to be
he
on the
might.
show. Yeah, yeah.
I've got one guy. He's put his report into Congress at this point, so you never know. He recently retired, but he and a full the full air crew, they were you know between it was Japan and Hawaii. It was a flight to Hawaii, and he said that it was still dark out, that they were at the continental dateline. He said that there was just a little thumbnail of sun that you could see coming up the horizon. And he and his three, there was a second pilot and the engineer, and they're sitting there in the cockpit. And he said that suddenly these three silver disc shaped objects came into view. He said that it was very dramatic, that they went up above the horizon and they arranged themselves into like a triangular holding pattern and just sat there. And he said that all four of them, they had, there were all these, trained observers, and, we're not talking stupid people, we
Right.
trust pilots with our lives. And he said that these three disc-shaped objects, they just sat there and they sort of caught and glimmered back the sun, and then they shot down suddenly below the horizon line. He said that it was so quick that if he hadn't been looking, that they would have thought that they had disappeared. but they didn't disappear. They were just moving at such a clip that
Mhm.
it seemed like they had disappeared. And this is not an unusual report. And I have many reports where people have contact with beings, and and usually they'll have a message, and I see a recurring message, which is very interesting. Would you like to know? Do you suppose your listeners would like to know what those messages are?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, because
Setting
I
you up
didn't
here,
get
you know.
any. Yeah,
Um,
I didn't get any messages when I had visitation. So,
I didn't either, but a lot of people do. I noticed three things are told to people. Usually it's to military, more people that are in officialdom. I've got people that are, that are heading up some of the major aerospace companies in the world that have reported these encounters. They take it very, very seriously. And there are a lot of similarities and details and similar between these witnesses. But what people seem to be told is number one, that nuclear weapons and the idea of a nuclear war is you can't ever do that. That it's not
mhm,
even a question. It would destroy intelligence on your planet. So don't even go there.
mhm,
Number two that people hear is to stop trashing your world, that you have a
mhm,
fragile and beautiful uh, biosphere, but it's not, it's possible for you to destroy this biosphere, and you guys are acting recklessly with it. So treat your world more gently and with more respect. And then number three that people are told is you guys are still acting like barbarians down there. Your technology is way up here, but spiritually and everything else, you're way down. It's like Attila the Hun, you know,
right.
and people are told
Yeah.
that they need to raise their vibration or live on a higher frequency than we're accustomed to as humans. That we've sort of lost our way that way. So it seems like we're being guided and led in a particular direction. It doesn't
Yeah.
sound like an invasion to me. It
No.
sounds like we're the kind of the troubled children that were maybe being scolded a little bit,
Right.
by this
Right.
cosmic schoolmaster, you know.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you didn't get any message when you were visited. So can you tell me more about your
Sure.
visitation?
Well, this was about 10 years ago. Well, we're like going right to the point here because I don't always talk about this because, I mean, talking about UFOs is one thing. Talking about an alien visitation is like, woo.
Right.
But I'm happy to talk about this. I had a lot of presuppositions about this phenomenon. I kind of thought of it as in a nuts and bolts kind of way. Astronauts from distant planets coming for fauna, and kind of like
Yeah.
us going to the moon and picking up rocks. But I had heard about this meditation that you could do, where it's called a CE5 meditation.
Mhm.
A lot of people will do this just asking to see a UFO appear. For me, that wasn't good enough, and I put out there that I really wanted to meet them, and I even, in my, I guess my naivety, I said, if abducting me and taking my DNA as a price of the ticket, go for it, and I kind of
Oh.
put that out there. And I didn't think much about it. In fact, I didn't take it seriously. It was just kind of a romp. But apparently it worked. And they did come into our room. It seemed like they opened up what I guess I would call a portal, for
Mhm.
lack of better terminology, maybe Einstein Rosen bridge of some sort. But it's not like there was room to park a spaceship between our old house and the neighbor's house, right? So they had to have done some strange pretzel logic kind of thing there.
Right.
Um, but when they came through, I couldn't move. It was kind of the proverbial abduction story that they make fun of on Saturday Night Live and stuff. But they were not communicating with me. I don't know if that was meant to happen, or, I mean, they're not gods. They're just highly evolved beyond what we are. Maybe
Mhm.
they messed up, but it really scared me. But they did take blood, and they left the same way that they came in. Uh, I could not move. All that was left in our room was this blue glow, like the air itself was illuminated. And
Wow.
once I could move, I was shaken and waking my wife, and she wasn't having it. She was not happy about it. It's like, oh my God, you joined this UFO thing. Is this what I have to look forward to? Well, 2 nights later, she went through the exact same ordeal. She was the one that was shaking me awake. I had
Wow.
no recollection that night of beings, but apparently she did. She said, "You need to tell your little friends they need to leave us alone." I won't use the language. Um, and then 2 nights after that, we both woke up 3 a.m. and it was as though God was shining a spotlight on our backyard. We lived in Burbank, California. It wasn't a rural area. It was on the Chandler bike path, if anybody's familiar with Burbank. So I'm sure other people saw this if they were allowed to see it. But there was like a spotlight and it was shining in our backyard. I pulled up the Venetian blinds. We were both looking at this. And this time we did get a telepathic message, but it was, I don't know if it was a cosmic joke or if they were trying to calm us, or I kind of
We're
leaned
both.
towards, yeah, I leaned towards it being a joke, intentional, that they said, don't worry, it's just the neighbor's porch light. And my wife and I both heard this as though there was a megaphone in both of our heads. We looked at each other, we laughed our butts off, and we said in unison, that's no porch light. And then it blinked out. Um, Now, back in those days, I felt confused by it. I tried to understand it in logical terms. It didn't make
Mhm.
sense in logical or in scientific terms. I have a background in science. 40 years worked as a nurse. That's a good one. Retired now. Um, but I couldn't really explain it. But you know what happened is the right people came along. I talked to the nuts and bolts type people, that some of my mentors, and they felt like, well, you should keep this to yourself and bring ridicule on yourself. And people don't, really, like to hear this sort of story, coming from an authority in your position. But eventually, Kathleen Martin, she's my personal mentor, and she's the niece of Betty and Barney Hill. They were kind
Okay.
of the original couple that had an experience like my own,
Yep.
but it happened
Hmm.
way back in 1961.
Yep.
And she was able to kind of give me some understanding, and lead me to the right people that were able to help me get past my ontological shock, because that's what, I mean, it pulls your sense of reality out from under you like a rug. And you can't look at the
Yeah.
world the same uh,
Yeah.
when you've had an experience like this. And what I've learned is I believe that they were really, really trying to get my attention and to look at this phenomenon in a very different
Hmm.
way than I was looking at it. That
Yep.
it's not astronauts coming here for fauna and rocks,
Yeah.
that there's maybe something, that needs to be fixed in the heart of humankind, where we've sort of gone off track somewhere. And this is why
Yeah.
you see all the infighting and the egos and the wars. And I think that they're sort of doing it the hard way, but it's the right way. They're not going to land on the White House lawn. I don't think that's the way that they operate. I think it's
No.
person by person.
Yeah.
And that way it's personal. And then we can tell the
Hmm.
story to people like that are like you guys, you know.
Right.
I think that's
Exactly.
the way it works.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's probably a great way to do it because not everyone's going to be ready for it. And
Mm-mm.
the ones that are ready are going to have the experiences and they're going to be like, oh, you got to hear what happened to me. And that's going to spread it to other
Yes.
people that just might be ready for it or put the seed into
Yep.
them, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
yeah.
everybody wants disclosure out there, and I don't know that everybody out there is ready for it. For some, it will
No.
just be this fear factor. It's like they'll arm
Hmm.
themselves and they'll,
Yeah.
I don't
They're
think
gonna
that
come and
that's
destroy the earth. And it's like,
yeah, yes.
I'm like, okay, if
Independence
they
Day, the movie,
right.
and I don't know that that's the scenario we're actually in. I think it's kind
No,
of
I
the
don't think so either.
opposite. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
trying to save us from ourselves, maybe.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. You're gonna have to get me in touch with the hills. Um
Sure.
like
Very
niece.
easy. I can do that very easily for you.
Yeah, I would love
Kathleen,
Kathleen. Yeah.
she's an amazing woman. She'll say, I was Earl's mentor. And no, 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 no. There's no was about it. I'm sorry, Kathy, but she'll be that for the rest of my days, I think, because we all need mentors.
Yeah.
And she's the big one for me. She really helped me to embrace this and not fight it, and to not be afraid to tell people.
Yeah.
That's why it happened to me. I believe. I think because I'm in this position, and I'm able to convey to you guys, and I think it's an important message that they have. So I try to repeat
Yeah.
it often.
Yeah. I'm kind of the same way, with mine. I felt more like they were my angels. So
Yeah,
I don't have
maybe the same
the
thing.
fear, you know? Yeah, it's like I can't imagine that they would be out there and the years and years and years and centuries and yeah, blah blah of how long they've been out there and they haven't done anything to us yet. So
No.
what would make them want to do it now? You
No,
know?
we shoot at them. It's not the other way around. I mean, that's what
Right,
I've heard from
right,
people that would know, and in those positions, that there is a shoot them down order, and we sort of saw that when the Chinese spy balloons, as they,
right,
and some of those things were not balloons. They would not release some of that footage for a good reason. I mean, there was one thing that looked sort of like a flying horseshoe. And I don't know of any spy balloons that looked like that. It was not that,
no,
but we were shooting those things, trying to shoot them down. And so I think that we're kind of the troubled kids, and
right.
that's the scenario, not the other way around.
Right. They should be more afraid of us than us them.
Well, yeah, lock the doors. Here we are on Earth.
Right. Exactly.
Don't roll the window down and feed the lions. So
Hey, let me get
there
a
you go.
selfie. Selfie with the moose. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, that's awesome. That is so awesome. Do you have any other kinds of stories? Let me see. You also spoke a bit about Star Wars and how that movie was like a truism. It's a true story.
Hmm.
Can you talk about that?
Well, that was sure. That was one of the times that my mom talked a bit again, and I was 19 years old. Now I've kind of looked into the deep underground military bases. It's not an uncommon thing. I think that we have many. Uh, there's a couple I even know kind of where they're situated, but I'm not going to say because I don't want to get in trouble. I'm not anti-government. I'm not against I love my country, but anyway, but there was a problem with a lot of those folks getting cancers. Now it may just be that they built them sort of downwind of the Trinity site. I mean, John Wayne and everybody that was in the Genghis Khan again. There we go. The Genghis Khan movie that he was in. All those guys died of terminal cancer eventually, and they kind of pinpointed it down to the fact that, well, they were pretty much being irradiated from being downwind of the Trinity site.
Hmm.
So maybe that was the case, but my mom, she kept getting cancers, and they were unrelated. They weren't metastasized cancers. So she would be fine for like a couple decades, and then bam, it'd be cancer would appear somewhere else. So we were in Santa Monica. I was sort of being her resource person. I was emotional, help there for her.
Right.
It's
Right.
difficult.
Yeah.
And but she got a clean bill of health that day. It was kind of near where she used to work when she was working with Hughes, and where she had lived when she first moved to Southern California. And I think that maybe the stars kind of aligned with Star Wars because, um, I told Mom after she had her doctor visit, uh, wonderful news. Let's get lunch and let's go see this new movie. Here's Time Magazine. I was reading it, while I was waiting in the waiting room, and there's this new movie just come out. So we went to see Star Wars. It was kind of the first movie like it. I mean, Star Wars came out before Close Encounters of the Third Kind, beat it by a few months. So we watched this film, and for whatever reason, my mom, who was usually zip on this issue, starts talking and talking. And she said, "Son, you have no idea how close to the truth that movie is. The different space vehicles, the different beings, all that." She said, "It's really like that out there, but they're never going to tell the public. They'll never tell them." And, I was older and I was a little cockier at that point. And it's like, well, why the hell not? Why wouldn't they tell people? That's an important information bit, Mom. Is there a God? What happens when we die? And are we alone in the universe?
Right. Right.
And she brought up she brought up three distinct reasons why they weren't going to tell the public. And very interestingly, there was a document from the 1950s that was released recently through a FOIA request, the Freedom of Information. You can request stuff. And this
Hmm.
wasn't very redacted at all. And it had the three reasons not to tell the public that my mom gave me. So she was apparently quoting a document that was given to her, when maybe she asked the same question. But
Wow.
she said, "Well, son, think about, Orson Welles' War of the Worlds radio program. People turned on their radios and they really thought that there were aliens that were coming, well, they were attacking us, of course, and that's well,
Yeah, of
but
course.
that's the excuse they used, right?" And
Right.
she said people were barricading themselves up with their guns and committing suicide and draining their bank accounts. And imagine if this happened worldwide, it would be complete chaos. And, they
Mm.
just can't let that happen. And
Right.
then she said it could possibly harm world religions, and it could really harm the banking systems. Our whole financial structure could
Hmm.
collapse if they told the public. So, son, it's realer than you will ever know, but they're never going to tell the public, never.
Yeah.
And that this was 1977, and here, there's all this squabbling, in Congress still, disclosure, you guys need to tell the public. And they
Right.
still trot the same old scientists out to kind of ridicule people and say,
Hmm.
"Oh, this is just rumors that people have heard, and they're seeing swamp gas, or they're seeing this, and secret projects and what have you." And but it's the same old. uh, and maybe, now a lot of my colleagues are hot on disclosure, and I kind of like the idea too, but I don't even know who's going to do it. I mean, we don't have a Walter Cronkite anymore. And if the government comes out and does it, most likely they're going to scare everybody. They're going to say, we don't know if they're good. We don't know if they're bad. We don't know what their motives are, even though I think they kind of probably do. I mean, we're shooting at them, not vice versa. But anyway, that was the interesting Star Wars conversation that I had with Mom. She talked a little bit about it on her deathbed again. Very proud she'd kept her security clearances till the end. She wound up working as a headhunter for all of the major aerospace companies: Lockheed, Boeing, TRW, Northrop, you name it.
Wow.
Those are my mom's contracts. And
Wow.
yeah, she was very proud of that. It's an awesome woman. I don't know if she'd be
Yeah.
thrilled or horrified at what I'm doing today. She spent her whole life, trying not to tell people about the secret. But I think she told me for a reason. I think she probably kind of knew that I hadn't signed any non-disclosure agreements, so I can kind of
Now
get
it's
away with
time.
it.
Yeah. Now it's
Yeah,
time to tell her stories and
yeah. Maybe
yeah.
people will treat each other a little bit better, you know, if they know they're being, observed. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we would be better humans,
There's
if we
always eyes
kind.
watching.
Yeah, and they're not
Yeah.
shooting at us. I don't see any
No.
indication whatsoever that it's any kind of an invasion. So,
Yeah. So what do you think about like real quick like the Jetsons? Because that came out many I mean that came out in what early 70s or late 60s?
well, that came out in I think the early 60s, like 61 or something.
So what do you think about that? What is your thoughts?
Well, we were looking to the future. We've always been looking to the future, and you've always had science fiction writers, Jules Verne, to, Arthur C. Clarke, to the people that are doing it now, and I think that's a healthy thing. I think that Earth is the cradle, but we weren't meant to stay in the cradle forever.
Mm,
And I do think that we probably have a destiny out there, but I think that we have to be space worthy, maybe. That just because we have the technology to get there, maybe that's kind of the touchstone point, that why we're at this point right now, where people are seeing these objects and having visitations, that we're just about ready to be, like a spacefaring race, and maybe we're not ready for prime time. I think that this is a thing that we would go out there, and maybe the fear is that we would do Star Wars. And what they want to see is Star Trek. They want to see, you know, it be this positive thing. But our track record isn't very good as a civilization.
yeah.
That doesn't mean that it can't change.
No, no, that's what this podcast is about, is trying to raise the vibration of Earth so that we're all together on this.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
with you guys.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And we'll keep in touch
Thank
and
you, Dana.
get some contacts for me and
Beautiful.
get some more people on the show.
And
Yeah.
if people, if you guys see a UFO or anything that I've been talking about sounds familiar to you, you can go to MUFON.com, MUFON.com, and right on that front page, it's got two tab buttons that you can push. One, report a UFO. The other one, report an abduction or an entity. Just choose the appropriate button. Or you actually do both. Sometimes people will see a UFO and then they're in it. And somebody like me will get your report. We work regionally, so if you're in Southern California, I will see your report. Whatever state or whatever country you're in, because we are a worldwide organization, somebody like myself will take you very seriously, and you'll be treated right, I promise.
And I have done that myself. So
All right. Good for you, Dana.
yeah, I have done that. So, all right. So again, if anyone out there wants to share your personal story and experiences of the supernatural, email me at lighttalk423@gmail.com and let's get you on the show. And don't forget the like, share, and subscribe buttons down below. And we will talk with you guys next time. Thank you. Bye.